All right.
And we're back. Part two of my interview with Kevin Necessary. Because I'm using the free Zoomy thingy, I had to wait like 15 minutes or some shit before I could start the second one. And it's worse than waiting on an Uber in a small town. You're just watching that clock, you know. So I don't know if you've ever done that, but I do Uber a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
By the way, I misspoke. I accidentally said Bill Bramall, who's actually a great cartoonist. I was thinking of a guy named Bill Day.
Oh,
And it was I've never met either of them. I don't know what they're like personally, but there's that the reuse of the same art over and over again. Having like a file that that you can just pull from and and construct your cartoons. Um, and then I was, you know, it just irks me that people we put time and effort into this. I mean,
good.
if we could actually draw, we'd be like Disney animators or actually making with real jobs. But we can't. But we do what we can.
He's a great artist, people. Don't listen to his bullshit. He is one of the best artists in the business. He's talking about me. Go ahead. But Bill Day, yeah, when you're talking about Brammo, I was like, huh?
No, yeah,
Brammo
no,
is
I was
amazing.
just like, no, it was like shit, I
Both
misspoke.
Bills.
And yeah, no,
Start
his
over. Start
Brimmel's
over
stuff is
about
great.
Bill Day. Start over about your complaint with Bill Day.
But my thing my thing with Bill Day, and he's not, you know I can kind of understand this. So like he will use like reuse elements from his cartoons, and and like he'll take things from you know you know 3D websites with like different 3D models, or he'll just like redo his cartoons and just like put different labels on things. On one hand, I can understand, like, okay, we're commercial artists. On the other hand, we do our cartoons are meant to be simple and quick, and we're pumping them out, and try to have that that it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to draw something new. And you know I feel this way. Like, I've talked with Ann about this, and we've had those conversations. I've talked with you about this before. There was another guy, Ken Catalino, I believe his name was.
Yeah, I remember him.
And yeah, I mean, and
He was not an artist.
he was just taking people's, like Ramirez and Borgman and
I've heard about
uh,
that.
just everybody, and he was just like photoshopping things together. And so, but he was being paid as an editorial cartoonist.
And his work always looked like shit. And I don't mean shit like that was my opinion or I just didn't like it. It just looked like a hodgepodge of shit put together.
Yeah,
And I never met that guy. I met Bill Day once, but like at my first convention, which was in Memphis, and I think he's working in Detroit at the time at one of those papers. I've never met Bill Bramall, but I'd love to.
oh, me too.
In
Yeah.
fact, I am a fan. Bill Bramall, I'm doing it now. Bill Day, um, yesterday, I put my previous governor's name on a cartoon instead of the current governor. And then I was talking to the editor. I did it again in text, and we got confusing going both ways, and it was all my fault. But anyway, Bill Day got in trouble about a decade or so ago. And when I say trouble, he just pissed a lot of people off. Nothing happened to him for, quite frankly, plagiarizing art. He went someplace and he'd find, and he's nice to me. He sends me nice stuff, but this is the fact. He took artwork from other places. I don't remember where he got it. It's an old story, and all of those Alti guys were made the most noise about it. And other cartoonists didn't want to talk about it at all. But they talked about it at a convention. Cagle supported him, but Cagle has no ethics at all. Sorry, Cagle. Sorry, Daryl. But not sorry. But Bill was stealing artwork and putting it into his cartoon. It was a gun, and that's all I remember about it. I don't remember where he got it, and it made some statements like it was his artwork. He was reusing his own stuff. I could be wrong about this part, but it was something like that. Somebody else can come in and correct me and state what the facts were. You might remember this better than I do. But you were talking about like a guy reusing his own stuff, and I was
Yeah.
talking to Jack about this, and I probably shouldn't rope Jack into this.
Oh,
And
we can road jack in.
I said to him, do you think this is unethical or just really wrong? And he said, I don't think ethics has anything to do with it, and I agree with that. I don't think it's unethical to use your own work again and again and again, but it's fucking lazy. And I do think it's wrong. It just kills the cartoon. And I'm not Elvis, so I'm gonna give you this little story. There's a story about Elvis shooting a TV when he saw Robert Goulet or somebody like that. And I've always interpreted it as in he didn't really personally hate the guy. He didn't, and he's a great singer, but it was just he just couldn't stand that guy. Didn't matter what he did, he couldn't stand his singing style, and that's what I think it was. I could be wrong about that, but that's the way I interpreted it. And I use it for myself because there's some cartoonists. It doesn't matter what their opinion is, doesn't matter how what the joke is, or whatever. Just when I see their work, I just want to shoot the TV it's on. I
Mhm.
would. And one of those guys, there's like three or four of them, has nothing to do with their politics or a personal beef. I just see their artwork and I just want to fucking shoot it. And that guy, the first one that comes to mind is Dave Granlund, because Google Dave Granlund and any politician that you would see in a political cartoon. Do it with John Roberts. Do it with Putin. Do it with Donald Trump. Uh, he draws everybody. He may have drawn Trump twice, but everyone else has been drawn once. In every cartoon, they have the same expression. And sometimes he'll cut
Oh,
a little bit. He'll move it, but Google his name, Dave Granlund cartoon, and any politician, and you'll see like 100, say like Putin's of his cartoons, and they're all the same fucking Putin. And he's lazy, lazy. He shit
yeah.
it out to get it as done as quickly for whatever reason. I don't know what his reason is. I've never talked to him, but I tell you that is just one guy. I see his work and my skin crawls. I cannot stand it. And he's
Oh,
always in
I'm
Kegel's like top 10 of the week or some shit like that. Because editors don't give a fuck about cartoons, really, whether it's quality or not at all. I mean, I'm about to go
and
next.
and that's and that's I think that's my point here, which is like again, I've never met Bill Day, and maybe I love the guy, and as a someone who's done commercial art, I can understand. You have a limited amount of time. Time is money, and you want to pump stuff out.
I don't
It's
think
that
that's a good excuse for political cartoons.
yeah, because I mean, like I feel
Draw
like
your fucking cartoons is my
yeah,
policy.
draw your
You know?
cartoons, and and yeah, I mean, like I know, like we both draw digitally, but we're still drawing. We're still,
It's
going
just
through the whole
another canvas.
process. Yeah.
It's another canvas. And the biggest shortcut that I use is a back button and fill in the black space or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't even do that all the time. I always use the back button. But that's really the only tools that I use if you want to call it cheating. The editor made some comment about how he was drawn on iPad, and he says, I'm going to stop because it is cheating. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's just
No.
another canvas, is all
Yeah.
that is. I'm
And
off
so
that
yeah,
rant.
I
Go ahead.
mean, but yeah, I mean, it's the laziness because I feel like so many of us, I mean, we put so much time and effort into our craft,
Hmm.
and everyone is different. Everyone has different styles of drawing. Everyone has different skill levels, and but we put this time in, and like you, I mean, you're cranking out a cartoon, sometimes multiple cartoons every single day. You're
Uh,
insane. You
well,
know,
I
like I
got to
know that
draw a
like
cartoon
just
when
like
I'm
what
done
like
with this.
yesterday you did like what three?
I did three. I didn't want to do three. I used to do two or three a day when I started my own syndication, and I remember talking to Ed Hall about it when we were friends and before he passed away, of course. And then I realized, when I do two or three cartoons a day, it looks like I draw two or three cartoons a day. So let's just make this whenever I have to. So typically, there's going to be a day of each week that I got to draw two because I draw a local one for the Fredericksburg Advance. So, and since I draw a national cartoon every day, I am going to draw two on one day of the week. I woke up yesterday, found an email from one of my clients, Flagler Live. I can say it now because it's been published. And they said, "Hey, what's your turnaround time for a cartoon?" I said, I prefer like 2 days at the bare minimum. He goes, "Oh, I was wanting this today." And I said, "Well, I got to do two today. I just can't do it." And God damn, I hate saying no to a client. Let me see the story. What do you got? And he sends the column and he sends photos for me to do the caricature. And I thought, I'm gonna write something, but hopefully it won't be that hard to draw. Let's do this. And then he said, I can push it back to publish the column tomorrow that I want the cartoon to go with. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do this. You'll be the last one I do today, so you're gonna get it late. And he got it about 8 p.m. And I changed my scenery too because I walked down to Starbucks. Um, just so I look at something else and it kind of re-energizes me
Yeah.
at someplace else, just instead of sitting
Yeah.
at the same desk, because it feels like you're sitting at the same desk all day.
Yeah.
So I did that. So I drew three, forgot my easel, which really pissed me off. Um, That's kind of funny too, because my entire life before I became a professional cartoonist, and even sometimes with that, I just drew in a flat surface. I just drew in a desk. Even when I had a drawing easel upstairs in the 90s, when I was not working at a paper, I drew in the kitchen table just so I could not be locked away from my wife and kid, when I was married. And then I get more and more into just doing it on a drafting table, and now I can't draw on a flat surface to save my life. It's just so hard. I feel like my head and my neck gets sore. So I forgot my easel yesterday for my iPad.
Yeah.
It just drove me. I did the cartoon. I finished it, but it's at Starbucks. It drove me nuts. But anyway, yeah, I did three yesterday, and like I don't want to talk bad about the dead, but Ed would do two or three cartoons a day, and he was really cranking them out while he was very sick, and I commend him for that. But I just remember also thinking, it looks like you're drawing three cartoons a day, which when you do that many, and I talked to Jack about that because Jack draws a shit ton of cartoons. We're talking about Jack a lot in this. How much of an influence is he? We mentioned his name like 10 times,
I
but
know.
probably because I talked to him too much. But he's doing a lot of cartoons because he's doing them for some different clients. He's got Smirconish, the San Francisco Chronicle, and then for his own syndicate. So he's working his ass off. And the thing is about him though, he doesn't look like he's doing three a day, because for him, so he might be that exception. Jeff McNeely had a quote to Borgman. I remember reading this from Borgman when Borgman took on his comic strip. He said, "Can I do this? Am I going to wear out? Can am I capable to do this?" And he was talking to McNeely, and McNeely was doing a ton of shit. And he was talking to him in his garage when he's like rebuilding an engine. And he thought, well, if McNeely can do all this at the same time, that I can do a comic strip. And I heard this thing. This is what I had to tell myself when I went to Hawaii, because I lied when they asked me if I could draw cartoons on a computer. I said, yeah, I can do that. This was 1997, and I didn't know how. I'm not drawing a color on a computer.
Mhm.
And then they asked me, where they tell me, well, you need to do two cartoons a day after you get out here. You got to do a local one, and you got to do a national one, or whatever you want to with that next one. But you need a local on the front page, and so you'll be doing 12 a week. And I said, yeah, that's not a problem. And then some point during my layover in Dallas to Hawaii, I went outside to smoke a cigarette because I was a smoker back then. And that's when I started to stress about it. Like, oh, fuck. I'm gonna go. This is my
Yeah.
first newspaper, my first cartooning job, really. I'd worked for newspapers, but my first real cartooning job. And it's just for a year. And I thought, and I don't, can I do 12 a week? And what am I gonna do about this computer thing
Insane.
coloring? And then I told myself, I'm gonna make friends with a graphic artist there and ask him to teach me how to color cartoons and not tell the editors. And I did it. I found the guy came to my office and he's like, "Hey, we're going out tonight. We want to bring you with us." And they had a large graphic department, like three or four guys. And I went out and while we were at a strip club, because they took me to three strip clubs, which I got in trouble for later. I said, "Oh, by the way, while we're drinking, I don't know how to color on a computer." And they asked me, and I lied. And he laughed. And he goes, "I'll teach you Monday. No, no, in 5 minutes, you'll be fine." And it was just some freehand shit. It was fine.
Yeah.
But the 12 cartoons, that was the bigger issue. But when I was out in that layover, I thought about Mike Peters. And Mike Peters was doing cartoons for like ABC or something at the same time as this newspaper job. And then he thought, well, there's only two things I can do. I can just totally fucking fail at this, or I can just eat it all and thrive on it. And I thought, and he sounded confident when he said it. And now I'm reading it. But I thought about it when I was 1997 outside the Dallas airport smoking. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just thrive on this and may not have any other part of my life going on. So in fact, my probably help
Yeah.
marriage, but I did. And then they told me when I got there, you can wait a week or so before you start the dailies. You can get, absorb the place some. And I said, no, let's do it now. Just dive in. Why put
Yeah.
it off? Let me do it. And it fucking rocked. Everybody, it was extremely popular, and I missed it when I left. I didn't miss it. And then when I got to Virginia, they're like, interview an editor, like publisher, I just don't know if you have enough experience to do 5 cartoons a week. And I wanted to get the job, so I didn't say, go fuck yourself. So I didn't say that. But but it was pretty much like, I'm Clay Jones, bitch. You know,
Yeah.
I
Well, I
got this.
mean, there's nothing better than like, like trial by fire. You just like throwing yourself
Exactly.
into it. And,
Exactly.
you know, so like, I mean, now I'm doing like one cartoon a week, and then every 2 weeks I do a cartoon for another website called Remapping Debate, and I just started doing that. And Matt Davies actually used to, do cartoons for them. So he got me this gig, and and it's we've only done a couple.
What
Pardon?
came up? Yeah, because he asked a few people and he asked me about it, but I don't remember what the details were. And I was like, I didn't want to do it, and that's not why I didn't get it. Uh, I think that they would have picked you over anybody, I think. But when he told me that you were going to do that, I thought that's perfect. I think Kevin is the best cartoonist for that gig. I don't even remember what the gig was, but I remember that being my biggest impression, biggest memory from that was just hearing about it and that you were doing it and just thinking that is the best choice for this thing. I don't even remember what it was. Go ahead and tell me again.
But like so and like the rest of my week I'm doing like commercial projects and
Mhm.
and
Do you enjoy that?
but it's harder being a weekly cartoonist
Hmm.
than it is being a daily cartoonist.
I
you
agree.
know I
Yeah.
it's so hard trying to come up with the one cartoon that's going to live for the next 7 days online. And and you can't hide behind anything because like when I was a daily cartoonist I could hide behind the next cartoon. If Monday's cartoon sucked, Tuesday cartoon might be better. If Tuesday's
I
cartoon
think
sucked,
that all the time.
yeah,
And I tell people like when they don't understand a cartoon, I'm like, well, come back tomorrow. Maybe you understand the next one. There's going to be a tomorrow with this. Because there is. And sometimes when I feel shitty about the cartoon, I'm like, well, come back tomorrow, self. It will be better. It will definitely be better. If you hate a cartoon, the day that you publish it, your next cartoon is definitely going to be better. It may
oh,
not be the
absolutely,
best, but you got
yeah,
to get over. It's like you need a clean slate and stuff.
yeah,
And I've done that a lot. I've drawn cartoons where I just like, "Oh, God, that sucks." And then the reactions might surprise me because 10,000 people might share it. And they're like, why? That cartoon
yeah.
sucks. It's my cartoon. But yeah. What is this project that you're doing? I'm sorry. I
Oh,
interrupted.
so I I kind of made my peace that I was never going to be like a daily editorial cartoonist again. So I've for the past 5 years or so, I've been doing mostly freelance work.
Hmm.
So I do a lot of storyboards for like TV commercials. I've done
Wow.
uh,
That's
you
impressive.
know I you know I mean I still see like Febreze commercials out there that like I did that. I do a lot of stuff like
I didn't know you
I
did
just
that.
finished I just finished a project for Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and
Okay.
they're one of like the premier children's hospitals in the country. And for the last 6 years, I've been working with a division within Children's Hospital here in Cincinnati that is all about traumatic brain injury. And I've provided I don't know how many hundreds of illustrations over the years for this program. And I just
Wow.
finished, my latest batch last week. Um, so I do a lot of stuff like that, and so really most people never see like the work that I do. People just know me as for my editorial cartoons. They don't know that I did like I've done like concept work for Hasbro, um,
Wow. Hmm.
stuff like that.
So you're
You
drawing a
know,
lot. You're working a lot.
yeah, I'm working a lot, and
Yeah.
and you know, I wish I was doing more with editorial cartoons.
What is
But
this gig that Davies got you again?
it's called remapping debate.
Okay.
And so, and and the guy who runs it, is putting my cartoons with columns that he's writing, and and he's providing the script. So I'm really
Mhm.
just kind of illustrating his ideas.
Okay.
Um, and I think we're still, it's still like early days. I've only done 4 cartoons for him so far, so we're still kind of like figuring out like what our dynamics are. And but it's just it's still just a chance to draw and and to get work out there.
Hey, while I'm thinking about this, I'm going to write this to you too, if I remember. Send me a list about where people can see your work or stuff,
Okay.
whether it's short or long. So, and I'll put that in the Substack with this.
All
So,
right.
and I'd rather you write it than me write it. I'm just going to
Sure.
copy and paste. I'm also lazy. So, we were talking about the other cartoonists and stuff, and we talked about the ones we didn't like. You talked about the McCoys. I had this thing with Gary McCoy where we'd argue, and occasionally Glenn would come in. Glenn was the really, really talented guy, and Gary will agree with this. And to me, I've never really been and I've always been a fan of his artwork. And when he wants to be funny, he can be. He does storyboards for movies and stuff like that. But it seems to me like Gary just doesn't know how to fucking do this at all. Doesn't know how to be a cartoonist. And I'm not criticizing his drawing. I don't like it, but there's no crime with drawings having art style that other people don't like. I should know that. But yeah, I had this thing with them, and I used to be buddies with them. That's why they're worth is mentioning. I used to be really good friends with them like throughout the 90s, and then I guess after Obama became president, you know how a lot of people came out to reveal their true colors. They kind of did that too. Um, so yeah, I had a thing with them, a run with them, and occasionally I'm not friends with either one of them. I think they both unfriended me over the years, but occasionally they pop up on something else I'm commenting on, and whatever they say, especially Gary, will just be horrible. You know, it's just bad. And I have been blocked by a lot of conservative cartoonists. I mean, one who's not a lunatic like Rick McKee has blocked me. Mike Lester has blocked me. Mike Lester gave me a threat because I said something negative about the anonymous cartoonist before he became the anonymous cartoonist. Cameron Cardo, I had to think about it, up in Canada. I said something about him just copying McNally's style. We're all influenced, but this guy just copies McNally's style, and
Hmm.
most people don't like him. And then Mike Lester, and I made a comment somewhere about it, maybe on Daily Cartoonist, whatever. And Mike Lester sent me a threat. He was like, "You need to apologize to him or else." And I'm like, "Or else what? What are you gonna do?" You know, I don't threaten people online. That's like the closest thing I get. And then he blocked me. I'm thinking, was that it? Was this the horror? And then his wife doing this in prison now for manslaughter, I think, um, in a drunk driving incident. She friended me, and I was like, and I'm thinking that was just Mike using his wife's account for some reason. And then like an hour later, she unfriended me, but that was just really, really weird. But yeah, Mike is a raving, not just a raving lunatic. He's a raging racist, and there's I better not say that. That might be illegal. But I thought of something in my head. I can tell you later. And he has one of the best art styles out there. You know, he is
Yeah.
he's got a very irreverent mind. He thinks of stuff no other cartoonist can come up with. He is the most innovative and original of the conservative cartoonists, and who are mostly all propagandists. And Mike, I mean, you don't like his views, and he's horrible. He is a racist, and I'm not afraid to say that. Mike Lester, you're a fucking racist. And a horrible, vile, sexist, hateful person in every way, upside and down and inside out. Fuck you. But your artwork is fucking brilliant. And you know that because Jeff Stoller got in trouble for stealing his work. Some of like tracing or something, some of Mike Lester stuff. And I'm not saying this to
Oh,
from Jeff. It's true. So yeah,
yeah.
but I forgot my point.
I remember about that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, people kind of forget that stuff. Every now and then I see one of his cartoons, a Stoller cartoon, and it copies a meme I saw 2 days before, and it just makes me wonder because I mean he got fired from the Post for that, the Cincinnati Post, not the
Yep.
Washington Post, the now non-existent Cincinnati Post. But yeah,
But I mean, you bring up such a good point, which is, I mean, like, like with Lester stuff, yeah, he's out there looking, he's trying to come up with new material, and we're all trying to come up with ways to say something new
yeah.
that isn't like tripping over someone else's feet, and and so so whenever you see a lazy cartoonist,
Mhm.
it almost feels like a personal dig, like I'm not as creative as a lot of my colleagues, and I work really hard to try to come up with something that is as good as, or even just half as good as what my friends and colleagues are doing. And I'm putting in that effort. And when you see someone who is not
Sure.
putting in that effort,
Yeah.
it's just it just kind of burns you a little, and rubs me a little, in the wrong way. I'm like,
When you do this,
fuck,
you see who puts in the effort and who doesn't. You
yeah,
definitely do. There's a lot of people that phone it in. There's a lot of people with very simple drawing styles that doesn't seem to have a lot of art in it, but that's their style. And I
yeah,
think like they might do. A lot of times the effort that you got to put in isn't so much your art as it is your idea. And
yeah,
when you see like, and this happens to all of us, you do the same idea as somebody else. We've all been there. Um,
I build
You
a talk
see
around
it
that.
in days later and stuff like that, and you're like, this idea was out there. You knew this, and you can't say that they were plagiarizing it, and you can't accuse somebody of plagiarism when six people have done the same idea. Um, but it is lazy, and
I
I learned from.
I actually have a story about that.
I have a story too.
So like the day before the election, this
Hmm.
this past apocalyptic election when the whole world went shit.
Are you talking about the
Uh,
red wave one or the 2025, 2024 election?
2024 election.
Yeah.
I had an idea. I thought it was great. I sent it to the client. Like this is wonderful. Let's go with it. And I started sketching, and I just happened to go on Twitter at that time, and I've been trying to avoid Twitter as much as possible. But I just happened to go on Twitter, and I saw Adam Ziglis post a brand new cartoon. It was almost down to like the same composition
Uh-huh.
as what I was working on. And I went to my client. I was like, I can't do this cartoon because someone else is doing it. And then I went to I messaged Adam, was like, and I sent him right rough. I'm like, man, I'm really glad that I saw your cartoon because this is what I was going to be doing, and I'm glad that someone better than me had this idea too.
Well, I wouldn't say he's
Um,
better than you. He's great, but I wouldn't say he's better than you. And I wouldn't say you're better than him either. You're on his fucking level. So,
but so I mean, like, and that's what that's what I appreciate about this. And like like years ago, there was another cartoonist here in Cincinnati, Joe Hoffaker, who's a great guy, and he's about to escape to Portugal, next month. Um, he, like we both did a cartoon on the exact same topic, kind of again with very much the same layout, but I knew that we both drew our cartoons on the exact same night.
hmm.
So, but my cartoon came out earlier.
Yeah.
And a few days later, I started getting all of these email messages from people saying like, "Oh my God, did Joe rip you off?" And I'm like, "No, because we're in the same town and we have the same mentality and we have we grew up with the same kind of kinds of ideas."
Yeah.
And I knew which day he drew his cartoons. Mine just happened to come out earlier.
I
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
and so yeah, we actually built a talk around it, and it was which was a lot of fun.
When I have similar ideas and as other cartoonists, there's a few cartoonists that I have those ideas with. And Lukovich is one of them, and Davies is one of them. And Rob Rogers, a lot of times, I think Rogers now might be the one that I coincide the most with. And that doesn't mean that they're both published. I'll see it and go, Rob, you know, and uh and then he'll do the same thing to me. He'll tell me like I'll see him at an event at like a herb block and goes, every time I try to draw something, I'm looking, there you are, you already beat me too. And I'm like, you do the same thing to me, motherfucker. But I did this one time. This happens a lot. I did a cartoon when Steve Bannon was leaving the White House. Um,
Mhm.
this several years ago during the first Trump regime. I had him waiting to spend more time with his family, and everybody in the family had on the KKK hood. Even the mouse, the fish, they had a bird. They all had on KKK hoods. And I'm like, hey, this is funny. And I published it, and 5 minutes later, Lukovich did the same thing. 5 minutes later, like on Facebook. And I'm like, man, how did you steal that from me and draw it within 5 minutes? Just amazing, And I just beat him by just a few minutes. And uh, I don't know if I even talked to him about it. Just to laugh about it, but that happens. We'll do the same thing. And sometimes readers will see it and they'll accuse somebody of plagiarism. I'm like, it would have been impossible,
Yeah.
either one of us to have plagiarized the other on that thing. And when I was working for CNN, when the Queen died, I did a cartoon of like a beef eater and he's crying. And I thought, I was struggling all day. What do I say about the Queen? What do I say about the Queen that is not mean? I saved that for my national audience. Um, I had her running into Diana in heaven, but I drew the beef eater with the tear, and then another cartoonist did it, and I told the editor, and the editor had approved it, and he had knocked down 10 things that day, and then it finally accepts something, and another cartoonist does it, and I tell him somebody else done it, and another editor might have said, "Well, go ahead and do it anyway. It'll be okay," but not this one because he knew how I was, but he's like, "Well, back to the drawing board. We got to think of something else." And but the bad thing was that cartoonist was Gary Barlow. It was like one of my. I hate that guy. Oh, I don't hate. Yeah, I hate him. Yeah, can't stand his work. What do you mean I'm running out of time? 10 minutes left. We're gonna wrap this up after 10 minutes. But another time, I did a cartoon, and it was about Atticus Finch being a Trumper, and Matt.
Shit.
After it's like on Go Comics, Matt Davies sent me a note like, "You killed my cartoon, man. I was about to draw this, and then I saw yours." And I thought that's some respect, because he saw
Yeah.
a lot of cartoonists would have gone and had and drawn it. Uh, Ed Hall would have. Again, don't want to bash the dead, but I drew a cartoon. Ed clicked like on it, and the next day he did the same cartoon. And then he claimed that he didn't really look at mine, and then he claimed, well, I already had the idea before I saw yours, so it was okay that I went ahead and drew it. And I just thought, well, Matt Davies wouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have done that. But a lot of cartoonists would do that. They just go ahead and roll with it, or not even look for it. I'm still a fan. I still look at other cartoons. I look at the cartoonists I don't like. I look at Gary
Oh
Barlow
yeah.
every day.
Oh yeah. So do I. And because I, you know, and I think we've talked about this, ourselves. Like, you know, you do want to make sure that you're not like doing the same material that other people are doing.
That's one reason I look at
But
all the cartoons.
yeah, but I mean, but it's also still inspiring. Like, I mean,
It is.
I love looking at what my friends and my colleagues are doing, and even
It
people that I
pushes
don't
you.
know. Yeah,
It
it
pushes you
pushes
to
you.
be a better
Yeah.
cartoonist. Because say I'll look something up and I'll look at one of yours and I go, oh, that asshole Kevin, that cartoon's so good. I gotta beat it. I gotta do better. I want to do something on the same subject. It's especially true for me when I don't have an idea yet. Say like Trump just got a new jet from Qatar. He's taken a bribe in the form of a 747. And and say if you do a cartoon on that tomorrow and I don't have my idea yet, and your cartoon's really good, it's gonna push me. It's gonna make me mad just because
Yeah.
it's like, I want to do something good and I don't know if I can beat that. So
Oh,
I
I
got
will like.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
the thing.
I'll sit on my floor. For some reason, I've
Right?
got just like this. Yeah, yeah, I will cry, but like, the spot right down, on the floor. I will sit there, you know, and that's for some reason that's where I will sit there with my sketchbook, and I'll do my sketches, like my rough sketches and my rough ideas, work things out. But a lot of times I will also just like pull books from my shelf, and I'll look at, well, Rob Rogers cartoons, or your cartoons, or cartoons from other people, Pat Bagley's cartoons, not to steal, but exactly what you just said, which is these are people who, like, these are great cartoons, and it's showing me that they were, they were able to make that mental leap and to get the creative juices, flowing. And I want to do the same thing. And if they can do it, I can do it. And so it's just inspiration. And that's one of the best things about, like, our conventions, being around other people who are, who are as, creative and as nuts as you are.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love being able to pull from that. Um,
Yeah, that's my secret to
yeah,
writing. The way that I do is you have to be nuts. You have to be weird. And
yeah,
it's kind of like when you're a kid, you don't want to be weird. You want to be normal. You think you're weird, and you spend all your time trying to hide it, but you fail. At least I always failed. So at some point early in my career, I realized I want it to be weird. I just need to accept it, and I am, and I'm not as weird as I want to be yet. My son once said something to me when he's like 7, whatever. It's like they think I'm weird and stuff, and I said, "You are, and you need to be weirder, and embrace it, and it makes you more
yeah,
interesting. You're more unique. You're not like everybody else." And the weird thing is, when you're a kid, you're trying to be like everybody else. You're like when I was in the '80s, a kid, everybody's wearing polo cologne. It's just everybody had to be the same and shit.
yeah,
Whether it's your jacket or your shoes, but yeah, just be weird. I want to be the weirdest. I don't think I can do that because there's some weird guys out there, but yeah, I know I'm weird and irreverent. And so I just try to embrace it with the work. I want the weirdest ideas. And the thing is, when you try to be weird, a lot of people don't get it, or they just don't get the style. But then there's those weirdos
yeah,
that do. And I think everybody who subscribes to my Substack, I'm looking at you, has got to be a weirdo. I mean, they're putting money to read this weird, to support this weird guy's comment, and they can do it for free if they wanted to. But they're doing it because they want to support this weirdness. And so they have to be lunatics, lovingly.
yeah.
And I do love them very much. any last things you want to talk about in the last 5 minutes? That did not seem like 40 minutes, this second batch.
No,
It did not.
no. I mean, this felt like it just flew by. Well, yeah. I mean, like, what do you do to keep yourself creative?
That's a good question, especially when you do it 7 days a week. Coffee. Uh, coffee. Um, I don't know. It's like when I wake up, it's not there. Even if I have the idea, it's just not there yet. The zone's not there. And then at some point, I start laughing at shit in my head and everything. I think, okay, I'm getting in the zone. And then it just kind of comes to me. And lately, I've been very confident. I wake up and it's like I don't have my idea yet, and but it's gonna come. It's gonna find me. And sometimes I feel like I'm waiting on it. I'm just going, where you at?
Yeah.
You're gonna get. You're late. Come on, idea.
Yep.
You haven't landed yet, but it always shows up. It does. People ask me before. Um, well, it's like this episode of Friends when Chandler he can't get an erection. And he asked Joey, "Does this happen to you?" And Joey's like, "Oh, it does." And Chandler goes, "So what do you do?" He goes, "I do it anyway." And he's like, "How do you do it anyway?" But that's the same way with the ideas. With the cartoon. What if you don't have an idea? Well, you do it anyway. You go ahead
Yeah.
and get the idea anyway. You make it work.
I
And
mean, yeah. Like, I mean, I go through so many bad
I use
ideas,
weird references, by
yeah,
the way. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah. But yeah, no. I mean, like, I'll just like I will start just doing. Okay, this is a shit drawing. This is a really shitty sketch, but I'm gonna push through it. And if I can get this one out, then maybe I'm gonna have a better sketch in 5 minutes. And and you just have to accept like the idea is gonna come, and at
Mm,
the end of the day, something's gonna be drawn.
well,
It may suck, but there's gonna be something else after that.
there are those days where you get like 3 or 4 good ideas. I'm like,
Oh, I
where are they
love
coming
those
from? Where are they coming
days.
from? And you feel good
Yeah.
about it. So many that you can't do them all because time goes. Say you get 4 ideas, different subjects, and you think they're great. You love them. And you don't draw them on the same day because you want them to be good. And by the time you get to that, maybe the third one even, you're like, well, that issue's kind of passed. Or I thought of something else that's more important I need to cover. Even if I don't have the idea yet, I have to put,
Hmm.
and that's like daily routines for me and shit like that.
Oh, it can be painful, man. I've got a cartoon that's like half finished. It's inked, and it was one of those like I submitted it. We went with something else, but it was like, okay, I've got this one on the back burner. I don't think it'll ever be published. And I love the cartoon. I mean, it's great. And I just like, but you have to just be okay and accept that, it's never going to be published. And,
Yeah.
at some point, I'm going to have a better
That's
idea.
why I do blogs of roughs because they got to be seen. It's like
Yeah.
exercising itself out of you, even the really crappy ones. And if you've seen my roughs look like shit. All
So do
right,
mine.
I haven't seen your roughs. You should do blogs of roughs. I'm gonna wrap
Oh,
this
no,
up.
I do. It's paid content for Perspectives, the
Oh yeah,
Substack where I publish.
ask them. Maybe they might say yes. I actually don't ask. I did that with CNN, and I'm doing it now with the local publications and stuff that I draw for. So hey, the Cubs and the Mets are tied. Anyway, I'm going with the Cubs. Thank you, Kevin, for doing this. This is
Hey,
totally amateur. We did punk rock it. Did it on the cheap, and there's no production at all. So, and I hope these things get better. And you know what? I had so much fun doing this with you that I want to do it with more cartoonists, but I want to come back and do another one with you. I
all
think
right.
you're up for it if you're not sick of me yet. And
And anyway, and people who are subscribing to Clay's Substack, get more people to subscribe to pay for this because this is paid content, and
yeah.
then Clay can pay for a nice big studio and real cameras and productions assistants, and like he can hire better actors to come in and pretend to be
Yeah,
cartoonists.
yeah. That'd be fun. Be like those commercials. I'm not a real doctor, but I'm
Yeah.
not a real cartoonist, but I play one on TV. All right, we got less than a minute. Buddy, thank you so much. And I'm gonna post this today. I still gotta draw a cartoon, and I have an idea, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna go with it. So yeah. Might do something about that 747 Trump just got. So they're in the open taking these bribes.
I know it sucks.
Not even hiding. All right, buddy. How do I end this
All
now?
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.